What's up everyone, in this video I will be reacting to Reddit stories on TikTok. If you have TikTok, chances are you've already seen a Reddit story. It typically goes something like this.
Am I the asshole for killing tens of millions of people because I wasn't accepted to an art?
They're all kind of the same. You have like the words popping up over like Subway Surfer or Minecraft, but some of them have me dying laughing. Like there are some good ones. So I have a couple I haven't seen yet. So yeah, let's just get into it. Story number 1.
What's one interview you walked out of knowing you wouldn't get the job? I have had a number of job interviews recently that went poorly and did not result in securing employment. I started to think I needed to do something during an interview to really stand out, be impressive, unique, and highly memorable. I thought it could be risky, but might work out. I came up with the following idea. After concluding the next interview and shaking hands, I start leaving the room. Then before coming up to the door I would stop, turn around, and say there's one more thing you need to know about me. Then pull out a bottle of hot sauce, down the entire bottle, slam it onto the ground and say I can handle the heat. I would not
There's no way. I'm gonna let it play.
nod confidently and then leave the room. Boom. I imagined that they would be really impressed and wowed by such a performance. So the day came and it didn't pan out like I thought it would. It was only a small bottle of hot sauce, so I figured it would be no big deal to actually down. I should have tested the theory at home first, but I didn't. I was a nervous wreck during the interview. The interviewers had a very serious demeanor and a piercing gaze that made it difficult for me to concentrate on the questions they were asking. The room was uncomfortably warm, and beads of sweat formed on my forehead, causing my glasses to slide down my nose. My hands were shaking and my stomach started feeling really gassy for some reason. So, tell me about a time when you had to handle a difficult situation at work, one of the interviewers asked, leaning back in his chair and crossing his arms. I stammered, trying to recall the rehearsed answer I had prepared. Just as I began to speak, my stomach let out a loud, embarrassing growl. Then I farted. Not just a small tube.
This is just this cannot be real. There's no way this one's real.
But like one of those farts that could be confused for something much worse. If I had to compare the putrid smell, I would put it up there in my top 3 and say that the UN would have declared it a war crime had it been used in battle. The tiny room suddenly turned into a burial ground.
I love how descriptive these are. They always have so much detail.
And the smell wasn't going anywhere. The sound echoed in the small room, and we stared at each other in silence for what had to be the longest 20 seconds of my life. Eventually, I tried to brush it off and pretend like nothing happened. Well, there was this one time when I, had to deal with a, difficult client, I managed to say, my voice cracking. I went on and tried to make up for the heinous act I just committed, but at that point it was an uphill battle. Regardless, I was determined to follow through with the plan. So at the end of the interview, I started exactly as described before. I was leaving and I turned around right before the door. Maybe with not as much swagger as I'd imagined in my head, I declared there's one more thing you need to know about me. I pulled out the hot sauce bottle, almost dropped it, and started to open the bottle. In my head it was all one quick confident motion, like an electric Indiana Jones, but instead I fumbled around and had a tough time getting it open. It felt like a nightmarish eternity but was probably only about 20 seconds. Enough time for one of the interviewers to ask me what I was doing. I didn't answer directly. Instead, after I got the bottle open, I repeated there's one more thing you need to know about me. Then I guzzled down the entire bottle of hot sauce. I instantly regretted it. My mouth and throat felt like lava was swirling around inside me. I immediately started to gag and loudly cough. I was crying involuntarily. Tears hardcore streaming down my face. I was sweating even more than before, like a terrible fool. I desperately tried to scream I can handle the heat but just kept coughing before I could get anything out.
This has to be the worst idea ever. There's no way you could ever get this information out of me. I feel bad for him. Like, I would just die right then and there of embarrassment.
The interviewers were all standing up looking at me in horror and confusion. A few seconds before I threw up all over the floor I knew it would happen, but I tried to hold it back. I couldn't. I threw up all over the floor. It hurt as much on the way out as it did on the way in, if not more so. The vomit felt like flaming barbed wire shredding its way through my neck. I should mention a disturbing amount of fiery mucus was also leaking out of my nose uncontrollably. After I finished throwing up I could not bear to look at the interviewers. I hoarsely mumbled an apology and started to stumble as quickly as possible out the door. I had never been more ashamed in my life. Safe to say I don't think they'll be calling me back anytime soon.
That's a 10 out of 10 story. That was good.
What was the most humiliating experience of your life? I drive trucks for a living, and I pride myself on having a serious trucker bladder. I had just finished a 500-mile stretch and really felt like I had a full bladder. So I stopped at a TA and went to take a pee. Well, when I walk into the bathroom every urinal is full, and the middle one is taken by an ultimate Chad, 6'4", jawline could cut glass. This dude was peeing so hard it probably left a groove in the back of the urinal. Like you could hear the pee bouncing off of the urinal hard as hell. And it was a steady steam. Usually I wouldn't pee in a urinal because my bladder is beta and doesn't like to pee unless I have privacy. But I had to
I can just picture this guy where he's using words like Chad to describe the guy and beta black. What is it? That is relatable though. Like there have been moments I have gone to use the bathroom in public and then I just like I'm thinking about it and I can't concentrate and I just cannot pee. Okay, back to the story.
I had to pee so bad that as soon as one opened I went for it. I knew of course that I was going to pee mog everyone in there because my bladder was full and I can probably keep a soft stream for a minute and a half with a full bladder, something I pride myself on. Of course the urinal that opened was right next to Chad, so at least I was happy that since he had been pissing for at least 30 seconds since I walked in there to the time that the urinal next to him was clear, that I would be able to pee mog the hell out of him. Well, I unzip and try my hardest to start peeing, but my beta bladder only let out like 3 embarrassing spurts. I could tell he kinda looked at me too, like, having trouble there bud? So I held my breath cause I know that helps jumpstart a shy bladder. Well, my face was red as hell cause I was straining so hard to pee and holding my breath. I was literally seeing spots. Then my beta lower intestine lets out a queef sounding fart cause I'm straining so hard.
Why is this story just like the last one? It's like both of them started out with the same prompt. It's like, what was the most embarrassing moment or like something like that. And then a minute into the story, they both end up farting.
I swear Chad almost chuckled before letting out the longest, deepest sounding fart I'd ever heard. So not bad enough to pee mog me, he has to fart mog me too, all the while without a single break in the hardest pressured stream I've ever heard. For at least a minute so far since I'd walked in. Finally I get my stream started and it's slow cause I'm straining so hard just to pee. So I'm like okay, this dude's been pissing hard enough to cut concrete for a minute straight, no way he's gonna pee longer than me. This ultimate Chad continues pissing hard enough to spray civil rights protesters for another minute after that.
I feel like this guy from this story could be like the same one, like they're like the same.
While I pitifully spurt out beta puffs of clear pee. I'm sure his was a nuclear orange color from diseases, liquor, and testosterone. So this man water jet cuts into this urinal for 2 minutes straight that I witnessed, not counting however long he was peeing before I walked in there, while I'm spurting clear pee that barely reaches the lip of the urinal. Meanwhile he has a complete unbroken stream even with a ripping alpha baritone fart. Then, I kid you not, this guy proceeds to sneeze. Without breaking stream. I literally did not know that was possibly. But this man's
How do you even do that? How do you sneeze and not stop peeing? Oh my, okay, this guy is a Chad. Like
sneezes and doesn't break stream. I'm pretty sure he kept his eyes open while he sneezed too, but I couldn't tell because his hunter eyes were already such small slits with no visible upper eyelid. Then, I'm like well I have at least 45 seconds of solid stream left. I'm literally counting down the seconds, feeling my bladder get lower and lower, and in the silent room all I can hear is the sound of a rushing dam of water slamming against his urinal. There's literally a line forming to the urinals. Everyone else that was peeing had already cycled out and washed hands and left. It's just me and Chad and 4 new guys peeing. And I'm praying the whole time like please God this man was peeing before I even walked in here, please don't make me run out before him. Well of course I run out and zip up in shame as he continues to bull Connor out of that urinal like it was a black man in the 60s. Then I shamefully turn to wash my hands as another beta rushes into my spot at the urinal. Literally not even any of the fresh peers were peeing as hard as Chad. And the bathroom had a full-size mirror above the sinks, and Chad with his hunter eyes and grin is knowingly staring into my soul through the mirror while I wash my hands. So I can't really make eye contact with myself either in a mirror, so I just intensely focused on my hands while I wash them. Then I start the blow dryer, and meanwhile 4 guys have cycled in and out of the urinals and Chad is still peeing.
this story reminds me of Daddy's Home. Like the guy peeing, the Chad, the ultimate Chad is Dusty, and then the beta guy is Brad. Okay, I just had to say that back to the story.
I swear to God I could hear that fire hose stream over the blow dryer. And it wasn't a normal dryer, it was one of those jet ones that puts a dent in your skin while you use it. I shamefully walked out with my head down, and as the door swung shut I could still hear him peeing. I walked around and got a drink, some ibuprofen, high blood pressure from straining to pee gives me a headache, and put diesel on the pump. This dude finally walks out of the bathroom, hands dry and long sleeves still down, no need to wash hands when you're Chad, as I'm leaving the store. Then this dude proceeds to the trucker section of the truck stop and climbs into the biggest meanest looking Peterbilt I've ever seen, pulling doubles, and back the doubles up into a tight parking spot without even getting out to look. Meanwhile I'm pulling a tiny little automatic semi with a short trailer, and I was too scared to try and fit into a parking spot, so I just drove until I found a rest area that had a pull-through open. Chat absolutely humiliated me at the only thing I'm good at, and I can't forget about it.
That's another 10 out of 10. I don't know which one. I don't know if I like the first one or the second one better. That was good. That was really good. Okay, here we go. Last one.
I hired a private investigator on myself to see what he could find. I regret it immensely. It's not every day that someone hires a private investigator, especially not my friend. She had her reasons, though. She suspected her husband of infidelity. So when she shared what the PI was able to find about her husband, it piqued my interest. I eagerly asked her for the investigator's card. At the time, I had a lot of extra cash, and my life had been feeling dull. I spent most of my days playing games and watching YouTube, and I wanted to shake things up. So I decided to hire the same private investigator as my friend. I told my boyfriend about my plan, and he was into it too. We came up with a plan for him to act like I was missing and submitted details about my family, occupation, and so on. I warned my boyfriend that we wouldn't be able to meet up while the investigation was happening, but he was fine with it. However, things quickly took a strange turn. When the PI got involved, he seemed to doubt my existence. My boyfriend had to convince him that I was real, and then the investigator kept accusing my boyfriend of wasting his time. Finally, on the 5th day of the investigation, my boyfriend called me in a panic. He claimed that the only person who had ever lived in the state with my name, which is very unique, had died a year before I was born. Even more eerily, this girl had lived in my childhood home. I thought my boyfriend was playing a prank, but his tone was bone-chilling. "I'm not playing a prank," he said. "The PI even took me to the gravesite. It had your exact name, down to your middle name." I was shocked and didn't know what to do. I called my mother to ask her what was going on. Her demeanor changed to one of seriousness, and she told me to stay where I was. Meanwhile, I contacted the private investigator and begged him for answers. He only asked me more irrelevant questions, like where I was born and my parents' names. When I mentioned that my mother was on her way to my apartment, the PI asked for her full name. When I provided it, he told me to leave my apartment immediately and come to his office before my mother arrived. As I rushed to grab my keys, my mother pulled into my driveway with a man I didn't recognize. He was wearing a winter jacket despite it being spring, and I felt like something was off.
Oh my gosh. Okay, wait, no, this one, this is the opposite of the first two. I'm invested. Hold on.
Before I could leave, the man pulled out a gun. I recognized it as my boyfriend's and ran to my neighbor's yard. Thankfully, nothing happened, and I eventually ran into my boyfriend's car. However, there was another man in the passenger seat. It was the private investigator. He explained to me that he had a theory that my parents were involved in a kidnapping that took place a few states over. They did this because the police had suspected them of neglecting their infant daughter, and when she ended up perishing, they had to completely replace the child so as to not get caught. My parents had never mistreated me in my life, so this all came to me as a shock. Of course, I denied it all at first. However, there was no reason for my mother to bring an armed stranger into my living space. We got the authorities involved and they excavated the backyard of my childhood home. They found the body of the child they had neglected. The child they had me replace. Several years have passed since then. I've done my best to avoid thinking about this situation. I have completely moved out of the country, leaving everyone behind. My friends, my boyfriend, and that private investigator. I have no idea how deep this rabbit hole goes. I don't know how many connections my parents have had. I don't even know my father's role in all of this. It just feels so overwhelming. I had to get it out there.
Wow, okay, I mean, I feel like this is a 10 out of 10 as well. I mean, these are really good. I didn't realize these stories were that long, so we only got to 3, but thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy, please subscribe. We are on the road to 10,000 subscribers, so it really helps out. But anyways, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and tune in next time.